right.
Good evening, everybody. Mark Geary here for Geek Pride's cast on this Monday evening. With me tonight, we have a special guest, but as always, my co-host, Peter Allison.
Good evening, everyone.
And our special guest tonight, Anthony Pryor.
Hi.
Welcome, sir. So, Anthony, who are you? What do you do? What's your thing?
That's a complicated question. I am a freelance writer, developer, editor of role-playing games. I also do some stuff on my own, but mostly we're going to be talking about the gaming side of things. Been gaming and playing role-playing games, I think, was started in 1976.
Wow.
When one of my gaming friends said, hey, you want to play this weird game called Dungeons and Dragons? And I said, sure, and I never looked back. I've been working freelance for many, many years. I started writing for FOSSA's BattleTech back in the 80s.
Oh.
Wrote some fun stuff for them. I worked on the technical manuals. I did the Wolf's Dragoons source book. Did a bunch of scenario books for them. I worked for several other companies, including the original World of Talislanta from Bard Games. I did a fair amount of stuff for TSR for 2nd edition Dungeons and Dragons. I was the line manager for White Wolf's Scarred Lands series. I've done stuff for Goodman Games, for Green Ronin, a number of other people, just smaller projects for them. Lately, I have been freelance writing, editing, developing, and doing project management for Frog God Games in Poulsbo, Washington. And I'm here as an individual, but I'm also here kind of as the guy from Frog God.
So you said you did BattleTech? No, I backed a Kickstarter ages ago for the Clan Invasion, and I have got a canon character called Tristan of Federal Sons. He's a noble scion for the first Avalon Hussars, Lieutenant Colonel.
Oh yeah. Oh, I love that. I love working on that. I love working on that series. And I have a secret that I can share. I'm pretty sure that FOSSA, the company that published it, that stood for Fredonian Aeronautics and Space Administration, which very few people know. So
I always wondered what FOSSA stood for.
That's what it stood for. That's what it stood for.
Nice.
I asked the president of the company, and he told me. So that was what that meant. Yeah, I had a great time with that. It's really nice to contribute to something that has such a great legacy, because I go on YouTube and I see videos like the history of the Marauder mech, and I'm like, I wrote that. They're developing this long, involved history, and I wrote the original stuff. It's been elaborated on considerably since then, of course, but it's really gratifying to see that. And it's just really nice to be part of that. And I'm, inordinately happy with what I did with BattleTech. That was so much fun. And,
I mean, you were there at ground zero in 1976 when D&D hit.
Yes.
That is, that was like a fundamental shift in how we approach games, isn't it? Because before
it was remarkable, because I started like wargaming when I was in my teens. I started playing hex and counter war games and miniature war games. I played, Napoleon at Waterloo, Panzer Leader, and all those other games. And I got together with this group of friends that invited me, and we started just playing war games. And then one of the guys says, "Hey, you should bring in on the first level." And I was like, "The what?" And my first game, I just took to it, and I haven't really looked back. I was just so hooked on it from the day one, and that was using the white box with the 3 booklets, back in the day. I never got a copy of that, and if I had, I'd probably be a wealthier person. But I am ashamed to admit that for years and years and years, I just used photocopies.
Well, I think that was back in the 70s and 80s, that's how we kind of, introduce others to the game, kind of photocopy the core bits and just hand them out, go, have a read of this. That's the rules. That's what you need.
Yeah. Well, that was it, and I immediately started designing dungeons, and it was amazing. I mean, it was a completely, like you said, it was a new way of gaming, and it was a new way of looking at the world, and that's kind of the legacy of Dungeons and Dragons. Now we have thousands of role playing games to choose from, and nobody looks at us like, oh, you do that weird thing, and now it's like, famous people, Vin Diesel, I play Dungeons and Dragons, and you don't argue with Vin Diesel.
I know. I mean, that's what I think Vin Diesel's coming out to kind of say, I really like D&D. It's kind of reshaped the stereotype of what a role player was, because everyone's believed, they were kind of pasty, white, skinny, typically guys in the basement or back bedroom. And then you got Vin Diesel standing up going, I do D&D.
That's a very good Vin Diesel impression there, Pete. You should totally do voiceovers for characters.
Right. The joys of a software.
And admittedly, when we first started, we were skinny high school guys that didn't have girlfriends when we started. I will admit to that. But many of us did meet our girlfriends through playing role-playing games. And now it's a big family thing. Now everybody does it. My kid does. I do. My friends do. My girlfriend does. It's just, it's a way of life. It's now a lifestyle more than just a hobby, I think.
It's one thing. So you mentioned that. That's something I've sort of kind of observed. It seems standard war games and stuff, and it's funny you talk about Panzer Leader, because my father's copy of Panzer Leader is right over there. I've got a copy of it that's still there. I got it. But like old school sort of kind of war games, or even miniature games. Now, more recently, I think more sort of women are starting to sort of kind of take to them and stuff. But it very much the bastion of your sort of kind of of a boys and men. But D&D and RPGs have always been, I'm not sure if I'd say evenly split, but a lot more sort of, what's the word? Diverse, I guess.
Very.
There just didn't seem to be that blockage for women to play RPGs, and I never quite understood why that was, why they couldn't sort of kind of make the step into war games if they were, but they quite liked doing the RPGs.
And you're right. It's opening up a lot more, because the last Kings of War tournament I played in, I just got my butt handed to me by a female player. So obviously things have changed in that area. But straight up war games are still mostly a boys' club, although there's more exceptions. Role playing, on the other hand, is a lot more open to that kind of thing. And I think one of the things that heralded that, oddly enough, was, I think, Vampire the Masquerade.
Yeah.
That did bring in a lot of female players. I think it was because we were getting into stuff that was a little less combat oriented and more oriented towards social interaction and communications and things like that. And not to say that, women don't like conflict and don't like, war games and stuff. But I mean, I think that was more, gave more options and opened it up a lot more to people who had different requirements and different interests. And I think that's one of the things that kind of heralded opening up role playing quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. We could also be Vampire the Masquerade and the Rest of the World Darkness opened up to kind of almost an entire different community. You had like the goth and rock scene.
Exactly.
Suddenly they were going, oh, vampires, you say? It's like, and suddenly everyone just pretty much every goth person in the 90s I knew was playing vampire just as much.
I agree. The rock club that I joined when I was in university, they all had a Vampire the Masquerade. They did it live, so they did it with like a rock, paper, scissors type thing.
Yeah.
And they sort of kind of played in person. And I went along to one of the sessions once before going out for the drinks, and I was like, what the hell's going on? And it's like, because I was used to D&D, and then there's vampires and stuff like this, and it was
it totally made me love goths and kind of become a little bit of one myself. So it really was that was really great, because it had always been kind of this sort of odd subculture that I couldn't quite comprehend. And then all of a sudden, my friends and the people I was associating with going, "Hey, this is awesome!" So yeah, so it worked both ways. It got people of the subculture into role playing, and then it got people who were role playing a little more interested in the subculture. So I think that was really beneficial.
Yeah, what I found interesting as well is like you took essentially two marginalized groups, the goth scene and the D&D, especially with the Satanic Panic and everything, and you combined them together. And there's very much a strength in numbers.
Oh. Excuse me.
Okay, there's very much a strength in numbers. So basically, there was almost a pushback. Like when we came together, like the two different groups came together, they started pushing back much more in a much more concerted and organized manner against like the misrepresentation.
Yes. And it like I said, it cut both ways because it really opened me up, and I was like started to learn more about these different groups and these people that were playing, and I was like, you guys are okay, So yeah, that was really it. Because I mean, a lot of times, maybe we're part of, for lack of a better term, a marginalized group, and we don't necessarily think to maybe consider that there's other people who are in the same position as we are, and then we come together and go, oh, wow, we got a lot in common. So yeah, I think that's one of the great things about role playing. I think that's one of the things that it's good for. And it helps people, learn about themselves and learn about other people. And it's, at its best, it really is that kind of hobby. And I think it's lovely.
Yeah, agreed.
I really enjoy it for that.
Like I haven't, I played Dungeons and Dragons. It would have been as a kid in the 80s, it would have been the red box. So I'm not sure if that second was that second edition? Second edition, red box. So I played that as a kid, loved it, and then obviously you're growing up, and all my friends are sort of kind of like, oh, you don't do that nerdy stuff. So I was like on my own, so I couldn't really play it much. And then I did sort of like one-offs now and again, and I think we had a bit of a campaign where we did a Rogue Trader campaign for a while. And then during lockdown, myself, Pete, and a couple of the guys from Geek Pride started a campaign, a D&D campaign, and we've been going for 2 years now. And it's been such a help to the mental health, especially through lockdown. But just in general, the mental health, just because you were sort of able to talk to people, you kind of could be somebody who you weren't. Even like I'm doing the DMing stuff, but I could sort of kind of release a lot of sort of feelings about stuff and within the storyline, and conversely, the characters could do the same. And I think it's helped loads. I really look forward to doing it every Thursday and stuff, and it's just something that sort of I think is a really good release. You've got somebody, and especially like myself, I'm a bit of a hermit sometimes, kind of like sitting and going out scares me sometimes, but you get that interaction with real people, and you can talk to them, and sort of we always start before we go on, we talk about how our days have been, how things are going, if people have had bad times, and we kind of talk through it with each other and stuff, and it's really good for the mental health.
Yes. And it's also, you can meet someone, potentially who is ostensibly a stranger, somebody that you've never met before, but you've got this common, you've got a common language, and a common set of, a common culture that you can really appreciate. And it's a great way of sort of stepping into, social relationships, I think, especially with the rise of Discord and the rise of VTT, and the enforced isolation of the last few years. It is nice to be able to reach out and say, oh, good, there's a human being that I can interact with, and it's in a fashion that doesn't require me to really spend a lot of energy finding common ground. We start off and we go, okay, cool, we both have this in common, let's go. And I think that that's been a wonderful aspect of it. It's certainly kept me sane during lockdown.
Yeah, especially in D&D is essentially a platform for communication. We're playing a game, but on top of that, we're communicating with each other. And I remember chatting with, I think it was Adam Driver, I might have got the name wrong, with Game to Go, an organization that uses D&D and role-playing games for therapy, and explained to me that the encounters we experience in a role-playing game sit in the same place in our minds as real-world encounters. Now, we know they are, imaginary make-believe, but in the game, we experience it as a genuine, reaction.
Yes. Yeah, I remember, I think it was on the show Angel. Either Angel or Buffy, somebody said a line along the lines of, I haven't played Dungeons and Dragons for so many years without learning a thing or two about honor. And, that was kind of a joke, but there's something to be said for that. You really can, it gives you an opportunity to do things and experience things that you wouldn't in normal daily life, obviously.
It's hard not to get sort of kind of embroiled. Like we've had some pretty, tense moments and stuff, moral quandaries and stuff, where we've had proper sort of like not like proper very strong debates about like should this captive be killed or not. Pete's character had a sort of thing where he refused to kill people who were unarmed and if they were captives, and he had this really strong view about it, and they had this big argument with the cleric's kind of going, well, if we don't kill him, then he's going to come back and he's going to cause, and there was a lot of sort of kind of there was a really good thing just to hear people sort of kind of different views on it, and you could tell the people sort of kind of the views that they held themselves and stuff, and it was a really good sort of thing just to sit back and watch as they carried on.
Right. And it gives you the opportunity to have those discussions in a harmless context.
Yeah.
You can experience that kind of conflict without anybody really being harmed or anything like that. And I think that that's really good too, that you can see how you would react in a situation, or as a character you're playing who may not reflect your own views or attitudes might react. And it is really, really cool. Because I always said that one of the things about accessibility for games for people who perhaps have physical limitations and things like that, you have an opportunity to play someone who is free of your limitations, possibly, or you can play someone who's just like you and succeeds even with their limitations. And those are both really, really positive things you can do. Yeah. And I think that the value and the mental health value of role playing in general is, I think it's starting to be appreciated. It's starting to be seen, and I've always felt that was an important aspect of it.
Yeah, I'm pretty boring when it comes to characters. I have this running thing that my characters are always kind of named after me, but in a sort of kind of weird way, and sort of like and I kind of tie in characters from different RPGs into other RPGs that I play. Just so, it's kind of a running joke for my thing, but I always play a sort of honorable sort of warrior type. I just can't be a bad guy. I can't play bad guys. Can't do it. Right. Even in games on the computer, I have to go the good way because I feel guilty. I get massive guilt complexes and stuff. And so, but the thing is, I can't even say bad thing, but I kind of, you get some really good, like, I remember sort of doing it was like a rogue trader one, and I was a rogue trader. I was in charge of a crew. They were all misfits. It was really frustrating on time because they just weren't doing things. I was trying my best to be a good guy, or at least a good guy what you could be within the grimdark of the 41st millennium. And there was he kept on throwing these curveballs, so I was trying to do this, and I was trying to sort of save this planet, but then there was like this chaos infestation and stuff, and they didn't want me to be there, and so I kind of thought, well, if I kill these guys, it's for the greater good, and then it sort of backfired and stuff, and then it made me feel guilty and stuff, and it was just really good. But for me, it's like when I play a character, it's like a super powered me. It's like me. If I could be that hero on TV, who I would love to be. It's like I've got the same traits as me, but maybe me who's slightly braver, or who sort of would stand up to sort of, be that sort of kind of that superhero and stuff. So it's kind of boring, but it really helped. I really enjoy it. I kind of feel like it's like I'm acting out who I feel like I should be in a certain way.
When I was sitting around, every day going out and fixing computers, it's kind of fun to come home and be the hero.
Yeah.
And nothing says you have to, like, there's also no right or wrong way to do it. You don't have to play someone who's completely at odds with your real life character. You can play someone who's an idealized version of yourself, or you can play someone who promotes the same values as you do and see them actually put into action.
Yeah.
It's in your head. It's imaginary. I'll give an example. A friend of mine, I think I can say, Scott Woodard, who now works for Pinnacle and works on Savage Worlds, he ran an adventure at a convention that was, it was, I won't go into too many specifics, but it was based on an actual real life shipwreck. And we were the crew, and this was sort of the untold story. It was a Realms of Cthulhu game. And instead of the crew being lost, they actually took their roles in fighting these mythos creatures that were threatening the world. And in that way, it was kind of a weird way in my head that it kind of made a terrible disaster seem like it was more meaningful. And I know in real life, of course, it is meaningful. And I know the loss of life is really a tragedy. But it was interesting to have that model in my mind, to see that and show, here's another spin on it. And that was an interesting way of doing that. There wasn't any, suggestion that we were reflecting real life at all, of course. And there wasn't any, but it was kind of cool, because now I can look at that story and go, oh, okay, cool. I remember, I can see these people and feel that. And that was an interesting variation. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's because it immerses you. I mean, gaming is a liminal space. You create liminal spaces where there's a shared collaboration in its imaginary environment that you all mutually agree on. But it's a world without consequence and real world impact. So at the end of the session, you can just drop out of it and it's back to normal life. But you learn from it without any kind of negative impact, which is incredibly foundational.
Very cool.
Yeah. You worked on some really key D&D games back in the day as well. I mean, like, I've been looking at your resume, like Forgotten Realms, Dark Sun, and everything. And how did you first get involved in not just playing games, but also developing them as well?
Nope. We lost him.
He might have frozen. Oh.
Bear with us, ladies and gentlemen.
Really sorry. I'm just going to quickly ping someone an email.
Oh.
Are
we there, Anthony?
No, it's frozen completely. Right, I'm just going to send you a quick message. Matt, just talk.
Okay, well, what can Matt talk about? I had my first game of the Middle-earth strategy battle game yesterday. I got absolutely hammered, but it's a quality game. I was really enjoying it.
Anthony's dropped out.
It's dropped off. Standard. There you go. Having such a good chat, and things go per. Hopefully he'll come back on.
Can you invite? We should be able to come back.
Oh, my apologies. I am back.
He's back.
Sorry about that.
All right. Okay. Stops me from ranting on about random stuff.
Yeah. Well, hey, technology. It's our friend and our enemy. So yeah. Yes.
So how did you start going from a player to a developer of role-playing games?
Oh, well, as far as developing goes, I'm kind of the second tier. The first person is, of course, the writer and the designer. And if I've got an adventure, for example, Frog God, we just did I've been sort of developing and sort of managing the Kickstarter campaign or the crowdfunding campaigns. You get your draft from the author. You go over it, and essentially you're saying, does this work? I don't know if this works. Maybe you might want to change this. This is great. This is, and you go over it for the sort of nuts and bolts look at it, and say, narratively, does it work? Mechanically, does it work? And you work with the author to sort of develop another, like a real first draft. And a lot of times that process is short, and you're kind of limited by publication schedules and that sort of thing. But once that's done, it goes to the editor. The editor fixes the typos and makes sure that and also as a developer, I kind of have to look at make sure that they, for example, didn't use IP monsters, that they didn't accidentally use a beholder somewhere, for example, and make sure that the mechanics work for the level and the overall theme. And then that goes to the editor edits it, it goes to layout, etc. And then also, usually as a developer, I'm the guy that comes up with the art orders, which are kind of fun, where you figure out what the best pictures are going to be, and you send that to the artist and that sort of thing. So he's kind of like, he's kind of like the director of a movie, or even the producer, who kind of makes sure everything is going smoothly and make sure everything fits together right.
Nice. And I mean, how did you get involved directly into developing?
Well, I hadn't done a lot of development. I had done a little editing, which that's one of those jobs that is not my favorite, but it has to be done. So I just grit my teeth and do it. But it was back in 2000. I had, I think I got in touch with. I think it was actually someone from Frog God / Necromancer sent my name to White Wolf, and they said, we're looking for a developer for our new D20 line. And I said, what's a developer? And they said, you're perfect. And that was how I got development, got to be the developer on the Scarred Lands series, which another one that I'm really, really proud of. That was a great series and some great authors and great art and really good setting and that sort of thing. So it was really like they said, well, you look at it, make sure it works. And they described the process that I just described to you. And also I was, sometimes when you're the developer, you get told, hey, you're in charge of this. And I'm the guy who contacts the authors and the artists. And I say, hey, you want to work on this? And I kind of oversee the contracting and stuff like that too. So it was kind of like keeping a lot of plates spinning simultaneously. So it's kind of like pretty much every job that people don't want to do is the developer. And I kind of enjoy it, actually. It's great to see. We just finishing a Kickstarter. And I'm watching the layout come back to me from our layout people in Italy for a big hardback adventure called Heart of St. Bathos that we just did as a Kickstarter, and it was really cool to sort of carry that along through the whole development process and look at the art and see what they're doing with layout. And it's really, really fun to watch that. Sometimes it's tedious and it makes you tear your hair out. But on the other hand, it is a lot of fun. And we're getting to the completion on that. We're very close to getting that done and getting ready to go to the printers and go out to our backers. So that should be a fun one.
How are you finding the Kickstarter experience? We've talked to a lot of people about, and they've had, generally positive, but positive experiences with Kickstarter. They say it's very stressful. What are your views on it?
This one wasn't too bad. It was okay. I got there's a lot of little what they would what Douglas Adams would call a lot of little fiddly bits that you have to keep track of. And I wrote the write-up for the website, and I prepared all the art from the existing art we had and put it all together. And it was fairly smooth. I didn't have a problem with it, but that was my first Kickstarter, so I haven't really experienced any big breakdowns yet. I know that the final accounting and payment, that takes a little longer than I'd like, but I guess there's some bureaucracy and paperwork that needs to be dealt with in that. I am going to be managing a puzzle dungeon, another project for a puzzle dungeon series. It's going to be 3 related adventures for my good friend Rhiannon Louv, who's going to be writing this for us, and that's going to be Kickstartering, I think, later in the spring. And that should be fun, and that's going to be another Kickstarter for me to kind of stand in on. The other stuff that I've managed a couple of projects for Indiegogo, which is simpler, and the income is lower. We're a Kickstarter, we're looking for 30,000, and an Indiegogo, we're happy if we get 3 or 4 or 5,000. Mm-hmm. And I did a couple for Indiegogo, and that's kind of a pleasure. The last one I did was I both wrote, developed, and managed the Kickstarter or the Indiegogo for my own product, which was it was called Beware the Yule Cat, which was a Christmas themed adventure which incorporated Icelandic mythology. Okay. And I really liked that one. I'm so happy. That's one of my favorites of all time. We just did the Indiegogo around Christmas time. And it was sort of a moderate success. I wouldn't call it, a huge smash, but it was successful, and I'm looking forward to see that. And that's again something I got a lot of artistic satisfaction out of writing and managing. And, one of the other, actually, no, I go back. I did not actually develop that. That was another person was involved in developing and stuff like that, because I probably would have gone crazy. I think I wouldn't did the development on that, but I managed the IGG, and, it was fun. So, yeah.
One of the big things that's kind of, the big elephant in the room at the moment in the hobby is the OGL issue. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, there's been a lot of talk about it in the social media, even in the press. The Guardian in the UK are talking about it.
Yeah.
But to be honest, and the writing, which was, yeah. But, yeah, I mean, when you start talking about D&D in the Guardian and OGL this issue, that's when you realize not only is the game big, but also the when I say game, I mean the entire hobby. The hobby is mainstream.
Yeah.
I mean, what's your take on OGL as a?
And as I said before, I'll repeat what I said to you guys before. I think we're at the point where we should be generating more light than heat, and I think there's been a lot of emotions expressed about this, and that's understandable. I'm not. I understand the people who are upset and have had a really negative response. I did too, but I'm kind of at the point where I want to sort of look at it more pragmatically and more constructively. I think that the OGL was one of the best things to happen to the industry. I think it was a great. It was a great boon to the industry. A lot of the analysis and a lot of the dissection of the OGL that's taken place lately has put it in a new light to me. I would recommend analyses by Cory Doctorow and Kit Walsh from the Electronic Frontier Foundation. Both wrote some very interesting articles about what the OGL did and didn't do. And like I said, I am not a lawyer. I am not presenting anything other than my own personal opinion here. Those are both really interesting. And if you're interested in learning some real interesting under the hood stuff about OGL, I recommend that. Cory Doctorow, of course, a well-known author, and Kit Walsh, both a EFF person and a fine game designer in their own right, who, among other things, designed the award-winning Thirsty Sword Lesbians game, and which is for Apocalypse Engine, and that's another role-playing system I really like. I feel that it's done a lot. What I said to some friends recently was that the OGL works kind of like a peace treaty between two countries, and it works only as long as both parties respect it. Once one party decides they're going to start moving away from it, then it starts to break down. And I feel that it's, it could continue to be really useful, and I think the industry could have continued to work with it and continue to thrive and grow. Unfortunately, like I said, I'll be as, I'm not trying to be really emotional about it, but I feel that if basically the barn door is opened and the horse runs out, it's kind of too late to do anything about it. If you've got the indication that this agreement that we thought was immutable, that we thought couldn't be changed, can be changed, then it really no longer works as well as it did. And I think that that's my primary thing, is I feel like you can't unring the bell. And when you say that this agreement is mutable and this agreement is revocable, then it's really not, it's not as valuable. So I think, like I said, trying to put that as, pragmatically as I can, I feel that that's the key problem, is the notion that the suggestion that this agreement that we have worked under for the past 20 years is no longer valid. And that is really harmful, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the OGL was created way back in 2001, wasn't it?
Yeah. And again, I want to be as, I want to be as discreet as I can in saying this stuff, but it was created, and believe me, I know, because I've spoken to some of the people who worked on it, as an avenue by which third-party publishers could produce material that's compatible with a given game system without fear of legal repercussions. It really wasn't made for the fans or for the players or for the people at home. And I think to say otherwise is not true. It was to prevent the kind of legal problems that had occurred in the past with, trademark, copyright, and ownership of game systems. And Wizards of the Coast had some problems with that in the past. And I think that those problems that they'd had informed the creation of this license. And I think in as much as how it affected the industry, it was a really wonderful thing. And it was for the benefit of other people who wanted to publish and participate. And as far as that goes, again, I think it was wildly successful.
Yeah, because I mean, it gave people that wanted to make a role-playing game a baseline system that they could build upon.
Precisely. And also, yeah, I'll go ahead. Sorry.
And also promote that system and make it more widely known, widely played, so everyone started to use it and become familiar with it.
Well, there's been a lot of talk about whether you can copyright game mechanics, and I've seen a lot of opinion on that. And again, I'm not qualified to weigh in on that. But I would say that the agreement, also the other thing that it gave, and the thing that was so valuable to me as a designer, was a system reference document. It gave you common language that you could all use, that you could essentially, copy, and you wouldn't have to worry about this particular phrasing violates someone's copyright or violates someone's IP. And there were still IP elements of it. There were still things you couldn't use, like you can't, use mind flayers, for example, and that's as it should be. That's perfectly reasonable. But the other stuff, you could essentially, if you wanted to, you just cut and paste it from the system reference document. And having that common language helped D20 and then later 5e become the standard role-playing rules, for better or worse, because, of course, obviously it's not a perfect system, and there are some issues with it. But overall, if I could go into a room and say, hey, let's play, D&D, everybody knows how to play it. And I can just sit down and we've all got a common language to play with. And I think that enriches the publisher, and I think that also enriches the people who publish. And it also, like you said, it makes this the gold standard of the hobby. And I think that was one of the most important things.
Yeah.
So the Wizards have sort of come out with some statements on it, saying, I think the last thing it says, however, it's clear from the reaction we rolled a 1. It's become clear that it's no longer possible to fully achieve all 3 goals while still staying true to principles. They were talking about discrimination and stopping NFTs and things like this, which I'm not completely convinced about, but I'm not sure what is the current state of this. Is it something they're still moving forward with, or they're altering, or I'm not 100% sure.
My understanding as an individual, like I said, not as not officially, was that in their statement they said they are not releasing it as it stands. Right. And they also said, and again, I have to be I want to try and be diplomatic and not overstep it. But their implication that what we've seen was a, quote, draft.
Yeah, it's a draft.
I have a hard time believing that. That I think that what we saw was the actual intended language, and that the response has been so negative that they have decided, okay, we're not going to do this. And they presented it, and I'm sorry, but, I'll be honest here. They presented it in what I think is a kind of a disingenuous way. I think they said, oh, this is just this draft we're batting around, and we were always going to check with the fans and with the third-party publishers. And I have a hard time with that, knowing how corporations work and knowing how agreements like this work, that was their intention. I think that this is... there's a certain amount of backpedaling involved. And I think that they're going to go ahead and probably remove the elements. This is, again, my opinion, that they're going to remove the more egregious elements of that OGL and release it. And I think that the central problem I have with that, as being someone who's associated with third-party creators and someone who's worked in the industry for so long, is that nowhere do they change their position that the OGL can be revoked. They don't say it can't be unauthorized. They say that we're going to release a new one, and the fact is that sets the precedent, and that is, that's ringing the bell. That's saying that as far as we're concerned, we can change this anytime we want to, and we're really sorry that we overdid it. But we're going to walk back some of these things, but we're also going to include other things that maybe aren't as egregious, but they also involve the revocation of OGL 1.0. And I think, again, I keep going over this, but in my opinion, the only way that I think that they can get out of this is to revise the OGL to the extent that they give ironclad legal assurance that it is not revocable. That they put something in there, that they change the language and add the word irrevocable to it. And other than that, they want to throw in a few other things about, and I certainly understand the desire to keep offensive content out of the game. And I agree with that. Oddly enough, that hasn't been a big problem.
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing, that they're talking about that. And they also say that they're concerned about the license being in the hands of, quote, large corporations. Yeah. Well, none of the people who are publishing it are large corporations. Hasbro is a large corporation.
I I heard a very interesting. Well, I can't even remember. I think I was watching the Legal Eagle on YouTube or something, but or I'm not even sure if it was on that or not. But basically, there was something was saying that at one nobody had any major interest in Wizards of the Coast's within Hasbro, within D&D and Magic the Gathering and stuff. But the shareholders weren't asking questions, but then somebody turned around and started asking questions about how much money they brought in, and then they soon realized that it's the lion's share of the profits, and they went, well, why aren't people asking more questions about what, you know, D&D and Magic the Gathering, and we want to hear more about that. And then obviously the whole money signs came up, and people were kind of going, well, we should really sort of kind of try and get a bit more of this cash cow instead of letting it get out for free. And then that's why a lot of this has come out, because they're saying we can milk this massively.
I'm inclined to agree with that assessment, because in doing my own research, the statement from a WOTC executive back in December that the IP was under monetized, and that spread all over the internet almost instantly. And I personally was of the opinion at that time, I was trying to kind of look at it positively, to say, oh, under monetized, that means there's going to be more D&D movies. That's going to be the D&D TV series. They may do official D&D VTTs. They may sell more Beholder plushies. All that sort of thing. And I thought that that meant that they were just going to maybe exploit the IP a little bit more and get it more in the public eye. And I didn't think that they were going to do anything quite as extreme as what they did. And what they ended up doing, it just seems very short-sighted. And it just seems very unwise. And I think that they're kind of, you know, reaping the wind here. Seeing what happened. And, you know, I said before that the popularity of role-playing is a blessing and a curse. Because back when nobody was playing, when we were the only ones, nobody really cared about how much money it made. And now it's big business. And the bottom line suddenly is the most important thing. And I'm personally of the opinion that when they say, oh, it's all about the fans, it's all about the players, it's all about you guys, you know, it's all about the community. I don't believe that. I think it's all about stockholders.
Agreed.
And I think it's all about the bottom line. And I think that that's, it's unfortunate. And and again, that's what I think. That's my personal opinion. But it just seems to me that it's more the case of, they see that sweet, sweet third-party income and think, oh, you know, that should be ours. You know, and it's too bad, because I think that indicates a lack of understanding of how the community works and how the industry's been working for the last 2 decades.
What was the limit on it? It was like $750,000 or something. If you
$750,000.
If you make $750,000, we're going to take a percentage of
that.
Is
that profit, or is that actual income? Because that is, because those are two very different numbers.
I don't know.
Yeah,
sure. I'm not sure. They do explain it in. I know they sent some. There was in the leak, and I think that some of this may have been sent to the producers. They do say, well, you know, it's only if it's over $750,000, and if you make $750,001, you only owe us 25 cents, and that's true, but you know, there are some larger companies that make significantly more than that. And if it's, and also if it's gross income, I mean, that's easier to document. If they're saying profit, then you get into the realms of creative bookkeeping and is this really profit or not? And, you know, so it could be either one. And I couldn't say myself. That would probably be for someone maybe who's more familiar with it to answer. But either way, it's disturbing to me.
Yeah, I find it interesting how the industry reaction within a few days, as like those basically gone from shock to then disbelief.
Yeah.
And then literally people unsubscribing from D&D Beyond. And also we've had the creation of the open roleplay community, this new or almost an entirely new open source Creative Commons licensed role-playing system.
This may well, since there are some questionable areas in the OGL as it exists. Yeah. Like I said, you could probably go to court and argue that also the original intent of the creators was to make this irrevocable. And it's also, that language was not necessarily in common use when it was created. And you could probably go to court, and who knows who would win. Maybe the people with the deeper pockets, who can say. But the fact is that going against that and taking, if the OGL 1.1 is not, or 2, or whatever they want to call it, is not acceptable, it could go to court, and that could take years to resolve. The more sensible, and economical side of it, I can see people pursuing this legally, but also doing what Paizo is doing and doing what Kobold Press is doing and developing a new open gaming license that is truly, truly legally irrevocable, and a system reference document or a series of system reference documents, because it's going to cover several game systems, I suspect, and making that public. We just move over there. We just start doing that and let the legal chips fall where they may. Is probably more. That's probably the more sensible alternative. I still think that there should be some legal clarification about the actual nature of the OGL and whether perpetual and irrevocable and what all those words mean, and whether the intent of its creators count for anything, et cetera. I think those are really important. Those are really important factors that should be sorted out. But in the meantime, I'm perfectly happy to go over with Kobold's, Project Black Flag and their new system reference document if that meets my needs. And so that may be where we go. We'll see.
Yeah, and I think that ultimately that will hit Hasbro Wizards of the Coast much deeper, because people start going to other systems. People start playing other games other than D&D. I'm a great fan of the Interlock system by Artosaurian Games.
Yes.
I think sorry, carry on.
No, go ahead.
I think they're relying on the innate laziness of gamers and stuff. Sometimes I think it's you see it very. The prime example is Games Workshop and Warhammer 40k. It is by far and I buy the stuff and the things. It's not a great game. It's not the best war game you're going to play, but because it's so big and because it's just the norm and people are so used to it, people buy it and people do it, and they can kind of do what they want, and people moan about it. And they get upset, and you get sort of threats of doing this, that, and the other, but nobody ever really does anything. And part of me feels like they're doing it, and they'll do the whole, we're doing it for the greater good of the community and stuff, and then just anyways, they're going to make their money. People will moan about it, and then they'll just carry on, and they'll go, right, we got away with that, we're still making our money. And I think they're kind of relying on that slightly. I think, we will have people who will do these things, but it's basically there's so many people who are so used to 5e and D&D as it is and stuff that it's like, can't be arsed doing another thing. I kind of like this system. I'll just go with the flow.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the case. And I think, Games Workshop fans, for example, because for a long, 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 long time, Warhammer was the only game in town. Mm-hmm. Now I see a lot of stuff. I'm a fan of Kings of War, by the way. I like that as a fantasy game, because when Games Workshop sort of shuffled Warhammer Fantasy off the board, I was like looking for another fantasy battles game, and I enjoy that one. And I've had a good time with that. But it seems to me that the role-playing crowd is different because we've always had access to other games. And certainly back in the 80s when D&D was just another player in the game, was just one alternative, there was a plethora, there was a blossoming of role-playing systems, some good, some terrible, some outstanding. I played GURPS for many years. I was a big fan of GURPS. Haven't played in a while, but I might go back, who knows. And I think that those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it, which means that Hasbro WOTC did not look at what happened with 4th edition.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
They released a, I won't get into edition wars here, but I did not like it. I felt it changed the whole system too much.
5th
personally.
edition was a reaction to 4th edition?
Yeah.
Because it went down so badly.
Look what happened. They tried to put in a very restrictive licensing agreement, and they released a new game system that was much more proprietary, and they started losing market share to Pathfinder. And then what happened? They came up with a new edition of D&D and kept the open gaming license, and it exploded.
Mm-hmm.
It's all over the place.
Yep.
We got our like I said, Vin Diesels and Joe Manganiellos and all these other guys, these celebrity players. We've got people who are, celebrities based exclusively on them playing D&D online. We have, all sorts of people doing it, and it's become a huge nationwide phenomenon. And was that with a restrictive licensing agreement? No, it was with a very open licensing agreement. And you look back to what happened with 4th edition, and it's like, is history going to repeat itself? I think it might. Yeah, so also, we shall see.
Think about 30 years ago as well with AD&D. The TSR, the rights holders of AD&D at the time, were having really major internal money problems.
Right.
And the ones who were trying to kind of get mismanagement and so on. And along comes this small company called White Wolf that just hit the right time with the right product that really kind of nailed the zeitgeist. And suddenly, for the first time, D&D Dungeons & Dragons was not the most popular roleplay game. It was Vampire the Masquerade.
Vampire, yeah.
And then, as time went on, D&D came back on, 3rd edition. Then, I used to say, 4th edition came along. So I'm wondering if we're going to see something similar happen again.
I
mean, this is purely conjecture, I admit.
Anything. Sorry. Yeah, no, go ahead.
No. You carry on.
I was just going to say anything is possible. It wouldn't surprise me if something like that came up. These may be in like that supposed Chinese proverb about may you live in interesting times. Yeah. That may well be what we're bound for. We'll see. I'm kind of interested to see.
So what are you going to say, Matt?
I'm just sort of. I think the OGL's come out as a promotional tool, and it's done. It's been amazing for them. It's done so well. Somebody's asked questions about what money's coming from this, and went, oh, right, we can get a lot more. And they've now decided that they're going to try and monetize this more, and they need to do it. And they've done they've done it really badly. But I'm not sure how much it's actually going to hurt them, because of the popularity of it, and as much as it is pissing off a lot of people, I'm not sure if it, even if they lose a quarter of their sort of playership and stuff, it's still going to be a big chunk of cash that's going to come their way, because there's going to be a lot of people they'll get agreements from companies and stuff who don't want to lose it and stuff, and I'm just not sure how much damage it's going to do them. It would have to be a literal revolution for them to sort of get scared enough to sort of kind of do something, reverse it. I just don't know if they will or not, to be honest. I just think they're saying yeah.
I don't see that happening. I see them coming out with a slightly less egregious open gaming license and continuing to insist that this is their property and they can change this agreement at will, at their whim. And then I think the market's likely to fragment, and we're going to see a lot of other people playing alternative games. I think there is going to be a significant loss of market share, and that is the big thing that they're most concerned about. Whether or not that was true, but we had that supposedly leaked internal or that leaked information from the insider that said that their sole gauge of popularity was D&D Beyond's subscriptions, and everybody jumped on and canceled. I did, and I told them why, and then a few days later, oops, sorry. We rolled a 1, and they certainly did. And I think that the volatility and the actual real emotional commitment that a lot of people have to their role playing and to the game, I think they may have underestimated that. I think D&D is still going to be there. It's still going to be huge. People are still going to play it. But I think that it may not be the juggernaut that it was, and that is going to reflect badly on the people who made these decisions at a corporate level.
I think it's more so that it's like reading this statement and stuff, and it's just like, driving these goals were 2 simple principles. 1, our job to be good stewards of the game, and 2, the OGL exists for the benefit of the fans. Nothing about these principles was waived for 1 second. That's bullshit. It's just like it's just so. It's like if they just turned around and said, "Look, we realize this is making money. It is our property after all. We just want to make a bit more cash." If they'd been a bit more honest about it, people might not be happy, but they wouldn't be as sort of kind. But it's
I wouldn't have liked that, but I suppose I would have gone, "Hey, look, I respect their honesty."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
because right now it's everything that they've communicated has been sort of gauged in this kind of pseudo chummy kind of, we're gamers just like you, and I just. God, it just really grates on me when I read stuff like that. And I'm trying to understand the mentality that went into these decisions, and I'm trying to be sympathetic to, especially to, and oh yeah, there is something I want to say, that there's been an awful lot of sort of negativity toward WOTC and the WOTC employees. And I'm of the opinion, if they're anything like the people I knew, WOTC is a subdivision of a much larger corporation, and I am of the opinion, again, my opinion, that this was a decree that came down from on high. This came from Hasbro, and I suspect there's more than a few people who are currently working for the WOTC subdivision who said, this is a bad idea and you shouldn't do it. And I think that blaming, WOTC, and especially the rank and file, who are down there in the trenches doing the best they can, I think that's unfair. I think it's the people who only care about the bottom line that are the ones that came up with this, egregious, short-sighted, and self-destructive policy. And I know that these people are designers, writers, creators, just like the rest of us. And I think they love the game just as much as we do. And I'm pretty sure a lot of them were like, you sure you want to do this? So, yeah.
There's sort of been that unspoken but very much understood reaction by people going, "Are you?" Like when the DM turns to you, go, "Are you sure you want to do that?"
Yeah, that was kind of my reaction too, because I honestly didn't want to believe that they'd go this far. I really, if they had said, we're going to change the licensing a little bit, or we're going to start, selling more plush toys, or anything like that, I probably would have been questionable, and I don't know if you should be able to change it like that, etc. But I might have gone along with it and said, under those circumstances. But I mean, something this extreme and something this, I don't know, clueless, just strikes me as, and even, like I said, I'm trying not to get too much into the emotion of the moment, but clueless is kind of mild. It's kind of a mild term for what I'm feeling.
It's just like, I'm just reading through the statement. So it says that and it's like they very emphasized that draft language was provided to content creators and publishers so their feedback could be considered before anything was finalized. Bullshit.
You can't see it if you're listening, but I'm shaking my head. I am shaking my head sadly, because that is very clearly, that's not true.
Yeah.
I mean, let's call it what it is. It's just an untruth, because we very much know that they're kind of trying to soft pedal a disastrously misguided opinion, and that their fans are smart enough and passionate enough that they responded to it and saw through it. And, I wish them luck. I mean, I hope that they can get out of this, and that maybe they can come up with something that will enable their IP to be successful and not irritate the vast majority of fans and third-party publishers. But, I don't want to see D&D disappear. I'm not even particularly angry at Hasbro, because they're a good corporation and they've done a lot of positive things. But this was a bad decision on someone's part, and I'm sorry they did it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I could see why they might want to control the IP, or like especially like as you said, we've got blockchains, NFTs, and so on. So having some control of those uses. Perfect. And also controlling the type of content out there. They do not want sex Dungeons and Dragons being published. So yes, they do want to control the IP, but this feels a distinct overreach, if nothing else.
Yeah, it was just
I think an overreach is a good description of it. Yeah, because I think that they didn't think about, I mean, the kind of, almost patronizing tone in which they created it indicates that it suggests to me that some people there, not all of them, but some people don't really have a lot of respect for the people who are buying their product.
Yeah.
And that's just what it suggests. I mean, they may have utmost respect. I remember on the leak, they mentioned something about how they were trying to put the third-party producers into tiers, just like D&D adventurers. And they said something like, well, you're in tiers because that's just like a D&D character. Hey, we all play D&D, even our lawyers. And that just, I don't know, that just was so
clumsy
and just tone deaf. That's kind of I've been trying to think of that word. I'm trying to think of that phrase for like the last half hour. I couldn't remember the phrase tone deaf, but I think that that's one of the best descriptions I can come up with for how it's been addressed is tone deaf. And that is too bad, because they had I sure had a lot of goodwill toward them, and we all had a lot of goodwill. And a lot of the decisions they made, I backed up. I was with them about trying to make the game more diverse and trying to get questionable material out, and trying to, my personal, if I can just, I try to say this as much as I can when I get a chance, is that role-playing is for everyone.
Yeah.
Nobody gets left out. Nobody is, you don't gatekeep. You don't say, oh no, someone like this can't play. You can't say you can't play this kind of character. You can do whatever you want. And, as far as I'm concerned, if you're playing it, your home game, I've got no control over that. If you do something that I find egregious, it's your campaign. You can do what you want. But in general, I think that this should be a welcoming hobby. It should be a positive hobby. It should allow us to do what I said before about you can play someone like yourself and deal with the same challenges you face each day, or you can play someone unlike yourself and have lots of new challenges. And that is, and there's not a lot of this, but the people who are gatekeeping the hobby, I think that's keeping out people that it's designed for, that it works best for. And I admire a lot of the stuff that WOTC did regarding that, like in, Radiant Citadel.
Yeah.
And, I'm sorry, but the handicap accessible dungeon, I thought was a great idea. And I thought that was fine. I thought that was wonderful. I love those miniatures of the people did the miniatures of the people with mobility devices.
Yeah.
If you don't like that and you don't think that that's appropriate, don't put it in your campaign. But if you've got people who want to play that and feel that this is a good example of you, living in a world where there are people like you, that is powerful.
Agreed.
And I don't think anybody should be opposed to that. So this is kind of an attaboy for Hasbro up to this point, and I do support a lot of the stuff they did, but this was when you let the bottom line become more important. And I don't want to see that. So there you go.
I was thinking, something you said about role playing being for everyone. It is for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, I've written a peer-reviewed essay recently for an academic journal called Deviant Leisure and Events of Deviance, looking at how role-playing games are a therapeutic tool, and how it can be used for exploring gender identity and sexual identity.
Yes.
And I've interviewed gamers from around the world saying, and how it has informed their own self-identity.
This is kind of a passion thing for me, because I don't care who you are, what you look like, what you call yourself, how you identify, what deities you worship. You are welcome at my table. Period.
Exactly.
And that's how it is with me. And that's, as you can tell, that's a pretty significant thing for me.
Yeah, agreed.
So just rant over. But
I've got a bit at the end of this statement, which I can't believe they wrote this. It says a couple of last thoughts. First, we want to be able to release the new OGL today because we need to make sure we get it right, but it's coming. Second, you're going to hear people say that they won and that we lost because making your voices heard forced us to change our plans. Those people were only half right. They won, and so did we. And I'm just like, what the fuck? What is that? What is that?
I don't know. I read that with sort of my mouth hanging open. It's like, no, if you change the OGL, we all lose.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my opinion, is that we don't all win. This isn't a win-win. If they say, oh yeah, this is ours, we can do with it what we want, and maybe we're not doing the more egregious things that you objected to, but we can change it anytime we want. That's a lose-lose.
Yeah.
We're going to lose the ability to publish, under that agreement, and they're going to lose the support of the people who were fans up to this point. And it's like, no, anything short of them, like I said, agreeing that this license is irrevocable is not going to be enough for me, and I don't think it's going to be enough for a lot of the community.
Yeah, I think
so. Yeah, that's the issue I take with that. I mean, obviously, I kind of feel sorry for the person who had to write this, because you have to try and put a spin on it, and the spin is, hey, we've heard you, and we're fixing things, and now you've got nothing to worry about. And it's like, most people are, most of the comments I've seen online, and admittedly, we're talking about that light versus heat thing. Most of them are very heated and say, oh no, nothing they can say will change my mind. And I think that's a pretty widespread reaction.
Yeah. I think almost the damage has been done. I mean,
it's been done.
Yeah, there's almost no backpedaling from this, because they've shown their hand and people just taken a step back.
No. And as I said before, you cannot unring the bell.
Yeah.
And then that leads on to them. If they feel that damage has been done, maybe they're just going to go ahead anyway, because they can't lose. They can't lose anything more. They've done it. So it's just like they've The ROM.
Well, as a war gamer, I know when I'm like advancing my cavalry and half of them have been slaughtered by archers.
Yeah.
I just keep going.
Yeah.
Might as well charge on ahead, hoping that we'll break through.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's kind of how I'm seeing this. That it's like the sensible thing would be to reassess this from scratch. And I don't think that that's going to happen. No. I think corporate's going to go, no, we're going to go ahead with this. And in 6 months, this will all be forgotten. And I don't think that's the case. No. I'm sorry. But, I don't want to trash Hasbro or WOTC. I really don't. I mean, just FYI, I was there. I was hanging out. I did some work for WOTC at the very beginning, but it all got canceled due to the success of Magic. I was working on some stuff for them, and I used to hang out quite a lot over at Pete Adkisson's place over in Washington. It wasn't far from the SeaTac airport, and the business meetings took place in his den. And I sat in on a few of those, and I was at a barbecue when the first Richard Garfield showed up with this whole mass of Magic cards straight from the printer and said, we're going to make so much money on this.
Yeah.
And he was right.
Cards on crack.
With that. But I was there. I hung out with these people. I was there. I hung out with Pete Adkisson. I really like Pete Adkisson. He's a really nice guy. And I know a lot of these people and was fairly close to them. And, that's my pedigree here. Yeah. That's what I've seen. I don't know any of the people who are running the company today. I don't know any of those people. And I can't talk about what went on in their heads. I can say that the people who started it cared about gaming because they were gamers. And to an extent, the discovery of Magic kind of, that was kind of the equivalent of them, pulling a rabbit out of their hat, because that was just, I think that was just luck on their part that they stumbled upon this idea for this collectible card game, and the world was never different after that. I think that's what made them and gave them the resources that they could get Pokemon and D&D and the other stuff that they're so successful with. And, more power to them. I mean, I support them, and I think that it was a good company, and I'm glad that they did what they did. But I was there at the beginning when nobody knew if it was going to be successful or not. When they published Primal Order and not accidentally, but they included mechanics from a game and had some legal issues because of that. I think that informed the creation of the open gaming license. I think that's one of the reasons it happened, was to avoid just that kind of problem. And I don't know if any of the people who are running really have much in the way of any corporate memory. Don't have any real thoughts as to what happened 20 years ago, or what happened 10 years ago. Again, not learning from history, and it's too bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't mean to.
No.
I don't mean to blather on here.
No. It's really interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah.
Really interesting. What's been your sort of? We'll move away from the sort of kind of the OGL. We don't want to keep you for too long. It's too long and stuff.
Yeah, that particular horse has been pretty beaten. Yeah, but it's still important. But
and also it's still changing. I mean, things are changing in the subject every day. So who knows where it'll be 24 hours, a week's time. Yep. Completely changed.
Yep.
What's your proudest moment in your development career? What's your proudest moment?
Well, there's a couple. There's a couple that I like. I'm very proud of, like I said, BattleTech, and particularly the Wolf's Dragoons book. I think that is still cited from people, and they still remember it, and it was a great deal of fun to write. When I was working for TSR, actually, my proudest accomplishment. There were two. One, I got to write for their Lankmar license, and I was a huge fan of Fritz Leiber and I loved his work, and I was just able to sort of become part of that. That was really, very, very gratifying. But I think my favorite thing from TSR was something called the Marco Volo trilogy, which was 3 adventures for second edition, where the characters hook up with an adventurer who claims to be Marco Volo and isn't really. He's a guy named Marcus Wands, and he takes him on an adventure, and it has a whole lot of sort of more what I wanted to do, more sort of witty stuff rather than slapstick or anything. So I threw in a lot of like Monty Python references and kind of tried to be fairly humorous and lighthearted. And that, I think, is the only D&D adventure in which one of the treasures is a hamper full of cheese. Because I found in one of their products, they had a whole list of exotic cheeses of the Forgotten Realms, and some of them were quite valuable. So I said, okay, they get a whole thing full of cheese. And I was very proud of that. And as far as development goes, the Scarred Lands for White Wolf / Sword and Sorcery Studios, that won awards. That has people who are still find it very, have a lot of love for it. I was learning, and a few things slipped through that I would rather not have had happen, but it was a learning experience for me. And overall, the thing was a great setting, some great products, and worked with some great people. And as a result of that, several people who are still active in the industry, right off the top of my head, Jeff Harkness, Joseph Carricker, and my dear friend Rhiannon Louv. I think their first work was on the Scarred Lands, under my supervision as the developer. And these people are still doing it, and they're still working on it. And I feel a great deal of pride that I was part of the beginning of their careers. I'm not claiming credit for it, because these guys have all succeeded on their own merits, because they are all very talented. But I really, really am proud that I could have been there when they started writing, and they're still here, 20 years later. And that has been great. As far as Frog God, I think, believe it or not, my favorite thing was the IGG we did around Christmas, the Yule Cat adventure, because it was a really sweet, very whimsical, and very cool adventure in which, no one really has to die. Let's put it that way. Some people might, but it depends on how you want to play it. I said you could play this whimsical and have a happy ending, or you can have everybody murder each other, and I just gave everybody that option. But just the notion that we could produce this thing that was associated with a really cool mythology, the Icelandic mythology, and little sidebar here, the Yule Cat, which is the giant cat that eats you if you don't get clothes for Christmas, is a big part of Icelandic mythology. And there is a much beloved poem that is read every year at Yuletide in Iceland. And we got in touch with the family of the guy who wrote it and got permission to use it.
Wow.
And that poem appears in the product. And this is for all these, this is for anybody who wants to play a Christmas adventure. And this is for all these wonderful folks in Iceland who have such cool mythology. And the fact that we just included that, it just made me feel really proud that we could do that we could sort of take this piece of Icelandic mythology and say, boom, there it is, and go visit Iceland or something like that. So actually, that's the thing most recently that I'm most proud of. Right now, I'm really happy with the way that the one that I mentioned before, the Heart of St. Bathos, is developing, and that should be a really good looking product. So there's a lot out there that I'm really happy with.
What's the Heart of St. Bathos about? What's that?
Heart of St. Bathos is an Underdark adventure. I changed it to Under Realms because of IP concerns. It was originally Underdark, and I know that's probably not IP, but I just wanted to be careful, so we changed it to the Underrealms. And essentially, you are trying to redeem the soul of a fallen paladin by finding the jeweled heart wherein his soul resides that's been taken by a demon. And you go down there and explore and do all sorts of it's a sandbox. You wander around, and it's kind of reminiscent of the Descent into the Depths of the Earth and Vault of the Drow and those older modules from TSR. It has that feel to it, and it's really well done. And I really recommend it. And just a minute. It is by William Knauer, who is who has written several things for Frog God, and also is the author of several books on successful writing. And he's a very good writer and a very good developer or a very good creator. And he wrote Lost City of Baracus and a couple of other things. And I really recommend it. And the Kickstarter's over, but that'll be available for people to get when the time rolls around. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Sounds good.
Wow, that's an incredible body of work you've got there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I've been at it forever. So I am Kim Mohan from WOTC/TSR. I ran into him at a Gen Con once, and he says, "Oh yeah, I know you. You're older than dirt in this industry." And I was like, "I am. I mean, I am." So yeah, no, and it's been wonderful, and I'm going to keep doing it till they nail the coffin shut. So there you go.
That's excellent.
You said you obviously play Kings of War. Are you into your sort of kind of rank and flank games then?
Oh yeah, I'm more of a rank and flank guy. That was the other thing I had with Games Workshop is like, oh, we're going to turn Warhammer into a skirmish game.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, square bases, please.
They're bringing it back, hopefully, but and
yeah, they are coming back. I'm going to check that out when it returns.
Yeah. And
we'll see how that goes. But I have I'm in my room here, and I have a whole wall full of unpainted miniatures.
You have to. The plastic crack, the pile of shame as it is. I've got so much.
Mm-hmm.
Have you played Cool Minis or Not Song of Ice and Fire tabletop game, the rank and flank game?
the tabletop? No, I haven't, and I'm really intrigued. I like the books, and I like the series up until the last season.
Yeah.
And the miniatures are great. I worked. Here we go. I worked on the role-playing game too.
So good.
It was terrifying. I got to write up House Stark.
Yeah, brilliant.
I got to do the history.
Yeah.
I got to write the whole history, and I got to write up House Stark, and I was just terrified because I know that's so critical to the fans, and I have never had anybody tell me I messed it up, so I presume it's okay. But yeah, I worked on that, and the game is great, and my only limitation is I just don't have room.
Well, the Cool Minis are Not rank and flank game, Song of Ice and Fire tabletop game. It's so good. The only issue with it is they don't support it very well, and it's just like the minis are beautiful. The game's mechanics are simple, but really sort of like it's so good. Especially when you've basically got cards that just fuck people over, and it's so Game of Thrones. It's so good, but it
does look pretty awesome.
Yeah,
I mean, that was a big temptation to me. Like I said, it's like, oh boy, just what I need, another game system.
Yeah, I'm the same. I've got I had to get rid of, because I got so into it. I bought every single faction. I was spending too much money. I had to sell a load. I know. So I am going to have to start thinking about that soon myself. And I will say just right off the bat, I do like, there are round-based games. Well, it's not really a round-based game, but the Osprey games, Rampant games. I just got Xenos Rampant, which is the science fiction one, and I've got Lion Rampant, and I've got several of those, and they use the same system, and they're all very, very friendly and not super crunchy. Yep.
And you can use square or round or whatever bases you want, and I really enjoy that particular system. And it's not a rank and flank game, but I still like to have those blocks of pikemen right there.
Yeah.
Those are great.
Yeah, definitely. Brilliant.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Okay. So we generally end our podcast with it's a bit of a it's not a pop quiz, but it's basically what we do is we find a geeky sort of franchise, and then we ask. You basically got 60 seconds to guess a character within that franchise.
Oh boy!
So basically,
I'm no good at this.
It all depends. Now, you by all means, if you don't want to play, we don't have to. But
I'll play. I'll humiliate.
We'll play. So basically, it'll be like, it could be Star Wars, it could be Warhammer, it could be it could be Star Trek, it could be a franchise. So you name the franchise. So you think of a character from that franchise. You say what franchise it is, Marvel, DC, and then we ask questions. And then after 60 seconds, we have to sort of guess who that person is. So I'll let Pete decide his.
I've got one already lined up
for his first one,
and the franchise is Dragonlance.
Dragonlance. Oh no, I am not going to have. I am going to have no. I'm going to have no.
I got to look this up. I know the characters. I don't remember the. Here we go. I know who I'm thinking of. I got to make sure I get the name right.
Right.
Just a minute.
I'm going to have no input in this whatsoever. My Dragonlance knowledge.
You've got to read them.
I know, man.
Stop reading.
There we go. Okay, I got one.
Okay.
Oh, it doesn't. You don't have to think. It's just Pete's got one from Dragonlance, so we've got to guess.
He's
got one. So
he's got one from. I have to guess.
Right. Yeah. So bear with me. Let me get a timer up. So timer.
Okay.
And then so you've got 60 seconds. So we've got stopwatch. There we go. Right. So Dragonlance, 60 seconds. So you just got to ask questions about who the character is, etc., and see if you can guess it. So Dragonlance, 60 seconds, go.
Okay. Well, male, female, or otherwise?
Female.
Okay. That narrows it down. Let's see. Spellcaster? No. Okay, that makes it even harder for me. Human?
Yes.
Okay. Oh boy. That's not that. So yeah, not a dragon. So
not a dragon.
Let's see. Martial type fighter?
Yes, she is a fighter.
Okay. Let's see. From the original, from the first series.
Yes, she is in Dragonlance Chronicles. I think was the first one.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Right.
Okay. So 60 seconds up. You can ask one more question, and then you've got to guess.
More question. I don't know. Hair color.
Black.
I'm sort of refreshing my memory over here. I'm cheating a little bit.
That's okay.
Because I haven't read it in a long time, and I'm thinking.
Oh, sorry.
In a while.
Pete likes sending really obscure.
I would not say
Dragonlance
is obscure to be fair.
Is she in the first one? Tika.
No, Tika's got red hair.
Oh, okay. Well, that shows how much I remember.
Kataya of my.
Oh,
the sister of Racing and Cameron.
Guess. I was close.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay. Yeah, now I have to reread the books.
Yeah, very good books.
Now I got to reread. That's great. Okay.
So you can pick a franchise, anything you want. Obviously, better that we may know something about it, so we can actually ask you questions on it. So think of a character. Okay. Think of the franchise. Think of a character.
Yes. It was. I know which one. I got to double check on this. Right. It was. I have it. Yeah, I got it. Star Wars.
Okay.
Star Wars.
So Star Wars, 60 seconds.
Right.
Go. Okay. So original trilogy?
No.
The prequels?
Yes.
So in the prequels. Are they in the Phantom Menace?
I don't think so. No.
Are they in Revenge of the Sith? Clone.
Yes.
Are they in Clone
Yes.
Wars? Clone Wars and
Yes.
Revenge of the Sith.
Yes.
Are they male or female?
Female.
Female. Clone Wars female. Are they? Oh, so there's no rebels or so. Are the female?
Are they part of the Republic?
Are they what? I'm sorry.
Part of the Republic.
Yes.
Okay. It can't be Padme because that's just too obvious.
And she was in Phantom Menace.
Yeah, she was.
Right.
All right. Okay. Wait. 1 minute's gone.
Is she a Jedi? Are they a
Yes.
Jedi?
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, clone.
You're close.
Oh, wait a minute.
Closing in.
Is she a Twi'lek?
Yes.
Oh, is it?
I know who you mean.
What's her name? Oh God, she was in The Mandalorian as well recently. Oh God. Oh my God, everybody's gonna hate me. Ahsoka
Tano. No, because you no.
Oh, it's not Ahsoka. Okay.
No, Ahsoka was in the TV series.
She's a Togruta, isn't she?
She's a Twi'lek, is she not? Is she?
No, I don't think she's a Twi'lek. So yeah.
No, she's not a Twi'lek.
Oh, right, okay,
Right.
okay.
Okay.
Oh God! Oh, you've stumped me now. Right.
A.
So Oh, wait a minute. Is she? Wait. She's in Clone Wars. She's in Revenge of the Sith. Is she? All right. My last question: is she a part of the Jedi Council?
I don't think so. Sorry, I don't know that for sure. I don't think so. No. I don't remember seeing her in the scenes with the council. No. But I may not be the best source on that. I met the actress at a Gen Con.
Oh wow.
She was originally a secretary at LucasArts.
Yeah, I'm completely. You're gonna have to give us who it is.
Her name is Ayla Secura.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ayla Secura.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just remember her because I was like, I met her at Gen Con. I was like, oh, you were great, and she says, well, I hope I'll be in the next movie, and she was, and she died.
Yeah, she is a Twi'lek. Yeah. Okay, there she is. Yeah. Okay.
So yes, Ayla Secura, my favorite.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. There you go. I thought I was going to completely own that. I was just going to be all over this.
Yes, my celebrity crush.
Yeah.
Yep, there you go.
Have you watched Andor, by the way?
I haven't watched Andor yet.
Oh, it's really good.
I want to.
It's really good.
That's on my list.
It's really good. Okay. What am I going to go for? I am going to go for Game of Thrones.
Okay.
And I'm going to go for... Who am I going to go for? Yeah, I haven't done already. I'm going to go for... I can't do that one. I've done that one already. Annoying.
Jon Snow.
No, it was another one, but it's just quite a good one because it's sort of like it's got. Oh, actually, I've got one. Okay, I've got one. All right. Okay, so yeah, Game of Thrones. 60 seconds. Go.
Okay. All right, male or female?
Female.
Are they House Stark?
They are not. Oh, it's a hard one. Like, so they are not. They were. I was just like giving it off to you. They are not in the character who they are. They are not affiliated with the House Stark. No.
Okay.
But they may have had affiliations with.
They may have had affiliations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did they leave House Stark?
They didn't voluntarily leave House Stark.
Oh. They didn't marry into House Stark.
They did marry into House Stark.
They did marry into House Stark. That's living or dead by the end of the series.
They're in the. They're not in the series. The character who this person becomes is in the character, but the character they are isn't in the
Lady Stoneheart.
Yes, very good, Lady Stoneheart.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well played.
That is a separate character who didn't appear in the series. So,
yeah. So
very good. There you go.
Yeah. Boom.
I think I'd do that.
Yeah. Right. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Anthony, I've really enjoyed this. It's been very good.
This has been wonderful. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ask me back anytime.
Oh yeah, you're more than welcome. Just even if you just want to have a banter about stuff. But yeah, it's been a great one.
For sure.
So thank you very much. For me, I've been Matt Geary. With me tonight has been Peter Ray Allison.
Good night, everyone.
And our guest,
good night, and
Anthony Pryor.
Thank you very much. Game on.
Game on.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.